Okay, this is Fat Stormtrooper. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking at here the items that are unusuals in the community market that are under $25 US dollars. That is under 50 keys. 50 keys or under. So if you actually look at this, this is all the unusuals. Okay, up to 5. That's still, so there's 6 screens. So there's 6 screens here, 7 screens. So there's 6.5 screens. Okay. So I guess the thing is, if you had to spend just 50 keys on something, what do you reckon you'd do? Now there are lots of these cadavers cranium. I mean, again, we're only restricted to 25 or under, so that's the 25. Nuts and bolts, yuck. Steaming, well, that's okay. This is interesting too. Dead President's effect and voices below, so you get a deep voice out of it, so that's not bad. But I mean, that's probably something that might be worth doing. The Dreadnought, well, you've got to get a pretty hopeless effect for that price. Steaming, Blizzardy Storm, well, you know, that's actually gone, because that was a good buy, so an astute buyer bought that. Ace is high, the others are too high, because we're looking at 50 keys. Halogen headlamp, again, the only 2 here, smoking and Ace is high. I'm not really impressed. The Wayfarer, you'd have to have a pretty special effect, and it's only going to be something low tier. Steaming, mass flies, yuck, bubbling, Ace is high, so the lower sort of tire stuff. Orbiting fire, I mean, that is a conceptually a nice effect, but it really, the orbiting effect doesn't do that much for it really. A brain warming gear, again, the lowest tiers, nuts and bolts, steaming, mass flies, and that's it. So most of these things are, not batting 1,000. Well, it depends on the effects. I mean, obviously, skill-gotten gains, silver cyclone, pretty restrictive effects. Unusual dead cone. In the past, I've got some good effects. So there's nuts and bolts, mass flies again. Yeah, so there's not a lot of variety there. I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, this hat looks okay, but it's not an overly popular hat, and the effects you're going to get it in are going to be pretty low tire. Nuts and bolts, orbiting planets, nuts and bolts. This is over the limit steaming. So, I mean, relatively poor effects. So what you try to do is bag yourself an effect or some spells quite cheap. Bubbling, nuts and bolts, and they're the ones we're allowed to have. Let's have a look at the next thing. This unusual Pyro's Boron Beanie. That's a funny looking hat. It looks actually quite okay, and it's not really well known. Nuts and bolts. Hey Boron, fuck you. Hey Boron. I suppose. Yes. Dead presidents. Again, sort of a recurrent theme there. So lower effects as well. Pugilist Protector. Bill's Mask. Again, bubbling, steaming with voices from below. So a spell there. Nuts and bolts. Diff from Doof. Doof, 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 doof. David away. I'm not really that enthralled about a doctor's sack. Orbiting fire. Orbiting fire. And you guessed it, orbiting planets. Everything's orbiting. So, the Glengarry bonnet can be an okay hat. Some people like that, especially in the right effect. That's not the right effect, and this is not the right effect, and it's really over that level. Now coming down here, spent well spirits and usual fire. Okay. The catchy, again, lower tier stuff. Blizzardy Storm maybe, but nuts and bolts of mass flies seem to be dogging us when we try to buy stuff. In this collection here, the bloke's bucket hat, I mean, I think Chicken's showcased these before. Under 25, the top one there is green confetti, peace sign, smoking, 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 nuts and bolts, nuts and bolts. So it's not like it's not like there's any high tier sort of effects coming out here. The goggles, this is interesting. Some of those goggles look okay. Mass flies, ugh. Okay, well we're not looking so good here. Blast defense. Two of those would be steaming and Dead Presidents. L for steam. Okay. So, sorry for that bit of a pause. I just was... The copper's hard top. Again, nuts and bolts. So, the disappointing thing on the community market is you've got a lot of these lower tier effects. Let's see if there's anything else. Like, the bird cage, sometimes that can have some okay effects for cheap. Bubbling, smoking. Smoking's okay. Yeah, nuts and bolts again. It's over that magical 50 keys we talked about. The Gridiron Guardian. Again, we're stuck to mass flies. A Prancer's Pride. Only one, and it's nuts and bolts. So many of these effects. So I think the thing is, if you're looking, you have to try and look for something, you know, that's not nuts and bolts, and it's not mass flies. Yeah, the right hat, steaming or smoking, may go with it. A stately toe. Nuts and bolts, yuck. Nuts and bolts, yuck. So they obviously can't get those sold. Shoulder stoopy. Steaming. Mass flies, nuts and bolts. So, yeah. So the next thing is our hot full of hot air. Some of those can have a good effect. Ancient Codex looks okay. It's a little bit... Electric Hat Protector is a very good effect. And I use this to get in the girl's space. Okay, fair enough. That's an Electric Hat Protector. That one's over. I mean, that's probably something that I think I am looking at, because I'm going to get one of these unusuals for under 25. Brain Bucket. Nuts and bolts. Nuts and bolts. Yuck. Um, the inspector can be an okay effect, but there's only one, and that is dead presidents. Something you could consider. We're up to 6 now, and this is where it's sort of getting towards the end of it. I mean, I see you as a nice taunt. Midnight Whirlwind, that could be another thing, but I'm actually more after a cosmetic. The Tricorn. The Tricorn is a steaming hat. There's only one thing because the price does not allow it. The Bolted Bicorn's quite a well-known demo hat, and Kilowatt's a different effect. Dead Presidents, Aces High. So something worth thinking about, that one. So it gets to the point now where things are basically going into the 50 key mark. The Sultan Ceremonial, bubbling effect, and even just here, nuts and bolts. So really overall in the community market there are unusuals. These unusuals are under 50 keys, and basically if you look through, you may get the occasional effect. The croc leather slouch, anything there, but it's too expensive. But when all said and done, we had one particular one that I was the most interested in, and that was that one with the head full of hot air. And I mean, Ancient Codex I could take or give, but electric head protector, I think that's worth getting, and I'm going to add some funds and get that. Okay, we'll get that, and we'll see what I mean, this is the hat in particular. Close, and we'll have a look in TF2. The effect on that is actually electrical hat protector. It's quite a good effect on a night server. It's something that I don't mind as an effect, and something that I think of all the effects that I could find, they were all low tier items or lower tier effects, and they're low tier because they're boring and they don't really look that aesthetically pleasing. Whereas this looks quite different. It's not my favourite effect in the world, but it's still something I wouldn't mind too much being seen on a server. Some things, like your mass flies hat, I wouldn't want to be seen dead in them. So from my point of view, it's something that's worth just under 50, and it's something that I got on the community market and with my budget in mind.